I can see that I will have to teach you how to be villains. Here's a little lesson in trickery. This is going down in history. If you want to be a villain #1, you have to chase a superhero on the run. Just follow. Just follow my moves and sneak around. Be careful not to make a sound. No, don't touch that.
What's up, guys? So this is super spontaneous stream that I decided to throw together. Finally use more high quality rips like this. Yeah. So yeah, this is a super spontaneous stream that I'm doing right now. I'm sorry, the quality seems to be a little bit low. I blame YouTube. It's not me. And I just had to talk about this because I noticed that people have been very dismissive of Anita Sarkeesian. So, you know, they basically make claims that she was only relevant back in 2016 or 2015 even. And that, you know, we shouldn't really be worried about her. Her channel is dying. I remember Sargon made a video on his Thinkery channel saying, feminist frequency is dying. I remember when Anita was hustling for donations. I want to say it was around the end of 2017, 2016. She was concerned that there would be no feminist frequency channel anymore. Well, thank you, John. Thank you. I have a new microphone. So, new-ish. Trying to make this show better as often as I can. As a side effect, I guess. I make my own little channel better, even though I haven't been doing as much. But I'm going to try and do more content for my channel. Maybe spontaneous stuff like this when things come to mind. I don't know. I like making the meme videos and stuff too, so I'll probably do more of that. But I definitely am going to try to make more stuff. So, anyway. So people are saying that Anita's not influential, that she's not a threat. She's nothing to worry about. Why do you concern yourself with her so much? If you didn't talk about her, she wouldn't have any influence. She wouldn't have any power. She's only relevant because you keep bringing her up. You know, she's on the way out. Nobody cares about this stuff anymore. It's bullshit. I mean, look. She was at Gen Con. Do you guys know what Gen Con is? This is the thing about Anita. Okay, first of all, before you guys, whoever is watching should know this, all right? I know that I will talk about broader sort of men's issues topics. But Anita's a cultural critic, so this is going to be specific to nerdy interests. But the thing about nerdy interests is they tend to be male-dominated. So this is still a men's issue in a way. It's important because what she's doing has nothing to do with inclusivity. It has nothing to do with equality. It has nothing to do with trying to make things more welcoming to people. It has nothing to do with any of that. It's only about money and control. That's all she cares about. Period. This is obvious to anybody paying attention. So, back to Gen Con. Earlier this year, it was earlier in August, actually, earlier this month, Anita was the guest of honor at Gen Con. Gen Con is a convention that's been around for years and years and years. It was essentially the largest tabletop convention in the US as far as I knew. As far as like D&D and like these sort of tabletop games and miniatures games and things like that. Anita's a video game critic, but she got to be not only a guest at Gen Con, but a guest of honor at Gen Con, where she did a speaking engagement called An Uncommon Conversation with Anita Sarkeesian. It's an informal conversation moderated by Luke Crane. Well, it was moderated by Luke Crane and would include a Q&A session. All Uncommon Conversations will be streamed for delayed release during and after the show on Gen Con, Twitch, and YouTube channels. I have to find it. I might like look it up to see if it's available on the internet someplace. But this is a big deal, even though people wouldn't think it is. It's a big deal because it's showing that she has influence. Now, maybe not over the actual customer base, maybe. Although I would beg to differ. I bet that she has more influence over customers and consumers than you guys, or than most would admit. I think a lot of people think that feminism is a dead religion. It is by far not. Okay? You know how religious right-wingers often say, well, they don't have to be right-wingers, but you know how like the religious Christian conservative types, let's say, will often make the claim that even if you are not, if you consider yourself to be an atheist, you are still behaving in such a manner that is in line with Judeo-Christian values. This is the same of feminists. People who don't identify as feminists often behave in ways that are still feminist, in that they still believe a lot of the base core ideas. Even if they would say, I'm not a feminist, they believe in the core ideas of feminism. They believe that women were oppressed throughout history. They believe that women need special attention. They believe that women are a special class of people that we need to be concerned with. They believe that men are the reason for it, and they believe that women only recently have been given a modicum of equality. This is what normal people typically believe. Normal people. They believe in and that's at the core, so that even if they wouldn't call it patriarchy, they believe in patriarchy. Even if they don't believe in rape culture, they believe in rape culture. Like, they wouldn't call it that, but if you ask them about it without bringing up rape culture, they would believe with at least most of it. So this changes nothing. That means that by that logic, the shit Anita spits, most people are going to agree with it, and she doesn't have to call herself a feminist anymore, right? At that point. So Anita goes to Gen Con, and basically she has criticisms, for the industry. That reminds me. Have you guys heard? Let me see if I can find this real quick. Let's see. Inclusivity. Player's Handbook. I think that's where it was. Just gonna find the thing I'm thinking about here. I saw it. No, that's not it. Gender diversity. No. There was, okay. Well, I'll just have to talk about it. I'm sorry. I don't want to hold things up. Thought the cake was a lie. If you guys want to make comments, or if you have questions or things you want to say, I'll try to read your comments, because there aren't a lot of people watching. I'm not that big, but Pathfinder. Okay. Do you guys know what Pathfinder is? Who here has some experience with either D&D, Pathfinder, or tabletop gaming in general? I want to know what if you guys have any experience with that. I'm going to wait and see. So I'll try to explain some stuff while I'm waiting to hear, because there's lag and I'm not seeing the most current, messages. So, like, Dungeons and Dragons, you guys know what that is, right? Tabletop role-playing game uses dice and your imagination. It's very simple, right? So when 4th edition D&D came out, it was very different from previous editions, and it pissed a lot of people off. A company called Paizo rose from the ashes by basically taking what D&D had done in 3.5 and expanding on that and creating the Pathfinder system, which is the best, basically, in my opinion, is 3.75. That's what I call it. So that was, it worked very well for Paizo, and they became an enormous, in fact, they overtook D&D for a while in terms of sales. Everybody loved Pathfinder because it basically had what people liked about the system from 3.5 D&D, but it wasn't D&D. I mean, it wasn't in terms of, like, you know, being the same sort of settings and everything. Now, D&D, Wizards of the Coast, they managed to compensate by making a 5th edition, which I actually really enjoy. I like the 5th edition quite a bit so far. And Pathfinder is now competing, you know, more, I guess you could say, evenly with D&D. There are people who love Pathfinder. There are people who hate it, you know, and there are people who love the 5th edition and people who hate it. It depends on what you know, what you believe or whatever, your taste. But here's the thing. The whole role-playing tabletop industry has been somewhat corrupted by this social justice shit. If you look in the player's handbook for 5th edition D&D, there are weird images in there. So before, back in the day, you would see, you know, we knew that D&D was basically a setting that was likened to swords and sorcery. So the characters were European, and they had sort of archetypal looks. You know, barbarians were, you know, muscular guys with long hair and maybe beards, and they dressed kind of like Vikings sometimes. Even though it didn't make sense, it didn't matter. It was based on archetypes. You know, wizards had long beards and pointy hats and so on. This is what we like kind of came to expect. Like, you knew you were looking at fantasy based on what the archetypes looked like. The 5th edition made a lot of changes, and I know that it was also kind of shifting in that direction already. But when I looked at the artwork in the 5th edition, you should look up some of the character archetypes there. Some of them are interesting and, like, in a cool way. Some of them are like, they raise an eyebrow, you know. Like, the fighter is like some, you know, like black dude with dreadlocks, but he's wearing like European armor, you know. It's stuff like that. It's not that you can't do that, but it's weird. Like, you ask yourself, like, okay, really? Like, does this really make sense? It's kind of off-putting a little bit, but it's just the artwork. No big deal. Well, Pathfinder, they took it a step further. I'm going to try and find the thing that they did, because I really, really want to read it to you guys. But basically, Pathfinder talked about how... Oh, you know what? I think I know where it is. Hold on a second. Hold on. I think it was in my... it was in one of the Facebook groups that I'm in that may have had it. Hold on. Because I know that there were... oh, yeah, here it is. All right. I'm going to move this over here and share it with you guys so you can see. Can you guys see that okay? All right. So we're going to scroll down to the bottom here where it says players. This is for Pathfinder. This is the opening of their book where they explain what a role-playing game is to people who are new or whatever. They have a section here called players. It says, as a player, it is your responsibility to ensure that you are not creating or contributing to an environment that makes any other players feel uncomfortable or unwelcome, particularly if those players are members of minority or marginalized communities that haven't always been welcome or represented in the larger gaming population. Thus, it is important to consider your character concepts and role-playing style and avoid any approach that could cause harm to another player. A character whose concept and mannerisms are racist tropes, for example, is exceptionally harmful and works against the goal of providing fun for all. A role-playing style in which a player or character is constantly interrupting others or treating certain players or characters with condescension is similarly unacceptable. I'm reading it to you. So, racial stereotypes. So, like, if you like play a dwarf character and you can do like a good Scottish accent and you play stubborn and gruff, is that offensive to people? Like, you like mining or whatever? To who? If you play a half orc and you you know, behave in orcish ways, I don't know, whatever that is that racist? I think it is, actually. I think people would say it's racist. You guys have heard of orking, right? Yeah, they would. Furthermore, standards of respect don't vanish simply because you're playing a character in a fantasy game. For example, it's never acceptable to refer to another person using an offensive term or a slur and doing so, quote, in character, end quote. It's just as bad as doing so directly. If your character's concept requires you to act this way, that's a good sign your concept is harmful and you have a responsibility to change it. Sometimes, you might not realize that your character concept or role-playing style is making others feel unwelcome at the gaming table. If another player tells you that your character concept or role-playing style makes them uncomfortable, you shouldn't argue about what they should or shouldn't find offensive, or say that what you're doing is common and therefore okay among players or in other media. Instead, you should simply stop and make sure the game is a fun experience for everyone. After all, that's what gaming is about. Jesus. Game Masters. This is the last bit. This is from the Pathfinder book, okay? The role of Game Master comes with the responsibility of ensuring that none of your players violate the game's social contract, especially when playing in a public space. Be on the lookout for behavior that's inappropriate, whether intentional or inadvertent, and pay careful attention to players' body language during gameplay. If you notice a player becoming uncomfortable, you are empowered to pause the game, take it in a new direction, privately check with your players during or after the session, or take any other action you think is appropriate to move the game forward towards a fun experience for everyone. That said, you should never let players who are uncomfortable with different identities or experiences derail your game. People of all identities and experiences have a right to be represented in the game, even if they're not necessarily playing at your table. Otherwise, if a player tells you that they're uncomfortable with something in the game, whether it's content that you've presented as the game master or another player's actions, listen to them and take steps to ensure that they can once again have fun during your game. If you're preparing writer's material, if you're preparing written material and you find the description of a character or a situation to be inappropriate, you are fully empowered to change any details that you see fit to best suit your players. Making sure the game is fun for everyone is your biggest job. Good fucking Lord. So now there are games telling you how you should behave at the fucking table. Now, of course, we can just choose to ignore it. But the problem is not that we're, you know, whether or not we're free to act this way. The problem to me is that it's in here in the first place. Why is this in here? Gaming's been around since the 1970s, at least like tabletop D&D style. You know, I know that goes way before that. They have never needed to put this stuff in those games before, to my knowledge. Never. What people do socially together has always been their fucking business, right? Okay, so this is another section on the Pathfinder book that says, determine your character's concept. Your character might challenge binary gender actions, your character may challenge binary gender notions, explore cultural identity, have a disability, have any sexual orientation, or any combination of these suggestions. I.e., please do these things because we need representation in fictional fucking tabletop avatars. Even if you, and by the way, if you're going to do it, make sure that you know how, I guess, or don't do it wrong, or don't do it in an offensive way. Like, why would you Why would you play that game of social hopscotch? It seems like a pain in the ass. Players. As a player, oh, I already read this part. All right. So this is the degree to which there is influence in tabletop gaming. I don't know if Anita is a part of this, but I'm starting to think that she may be. Because if she was a guest of honor at Gen Con and Pathfinder thought it'd be a good idea to put this into their playtest material, I'm starting to think that there is something to it. Okay? I think there's a connection. Now, this is the thing that made me want to do this stream in the first place. Anita Sarkeesian put out a tweet today. No, I'm sorry. About 6 days ago. All right. And it says, I might never have a building named after me, but at least I have a conference room at Facebook. Also, lol, what? Who did this? She has a conference room named after her at Facebook. Don't you think that's a little bit strange, considering that she's not supposed to have any influence or power whatsoever? Don't you think it's really strange that Facebook headquarters named a conference room after Anita Sarkeesian? I mean, does that not seem really fucked up? What that tells me is that she has way more influence than we think. Because Facebook's not small. Davey says she was flavor of the month. She's still, I think she's very, very relevant. Let's look at some other examples. This is really scary. You should be concerned. I know that maybe you guys don't use Normie Book. I get that, okay? The point is, everybody in Silicon Valley talks to each other. So Mark Zuckerberg is not living in a bubble. He talks to the guys at Twitter. He talks to the guys on YouTube. He talks to the guys at Google. This is all connected. And I'm sure that the majority of them probably agree with Anita's central talking points. For someone with no relevance, she certainly seems to be moving up in the culture. Yes, this is a big deal. Okay? So she was also, like I said, guest of honor at Gen Con. So tabletop gaming is probably going to die because of her. Or it's not going to be the same, at least. Then, you guys probably know that, you guys ever heard of the Dishonored series? So there's a Dishonored sequel. I bought the first one. I actually lost interest pretty quick and returned it. I wasn't crazy about it, but it does have. It's not a B-list game. It is like a AAA title. Okay, she has directly influenced Dishonored 2. And of course, Kotaku is like white knighting for her. This is her thing. She did a Dishonored 2 review. All right. And she tweeted about it. She said she liked it a lot. Now, one of the reasons she liked it so much was because she actually had a hand in influencing the direction that they went with the sequel. She was talking to the developers. Anita's talking to developers. She's getting things done. They're believing her. And the whole I get thousands and thousands of rape and death threats thing that she uses, it works on them. She hasn't produced a single amount of evidence for any of the harassment that she claims she gets, any of the genuine threats, right? She still gets influence. She hasn't produced any evidence whatsoever. And yet, here she is. She's making moves, guys. She's making moves. I just got a message from Marshall, my friend. On the topic of Anita and Pathfinder, my latest YouTube video was actually specifically about social justice warriors' infiltration into tabletop gaming. Yeah, I know. I saw it. Sorry. Let's see. How many? We got 40 people. Wow, that's good. That's a lot. So, I'll take it. So let's look at Anita's review of Dishonored 2. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I want you guys to see where her priorities are at. It should be obvious. She says, for all its immensely enjoyable stealth and combat mechanics and its terrific assortment of powers and abilities, the original Dishonored failed its female characters in a big way. With Dishonored 2, it's clear that the developers heard these criticisms, crafted a game in which women populate all walks of life, while also improving on the original's core gameplay, even with an even richer variety of abilities to employ and situations to tackle. All I need to do is read the first paragraph. Anita doesn't care about how deep the gameplay might be. She says and we know she doesn't really play video games, right? But she says immensely enjoyable stealth and combat, and all the powers and abilities, despite all that. And it's funny that she doesn't really talk about the narrative or the gameplay. It's always weird. It's okay. It's always weird that when people are talking about a review for a game and the only thing they talk about is what you can do, like as a player character in the game, as opposed to the world, the challenge, the gameplay, the mechanics, like the stuff that, because like what you can do as a player in a game doesn't matter that much unless because the world will, the world that you occupy is actually going to be a larger influence over how much fun the game is for you. For example, Mario can, back in the day, the only thing Mario could do was jump. And you had to get like a hammer, to like smash the barrels in Donkey Kong, for example. And even then, that was more like a little bit of invulnerability for a short period of time, more or less. So does that mean that because Mario was only able to jump and use a hammer and climb ladders, that made Donkey Kong less fun or less of a cultural phenomenon? No. So it's weird that she says, despite all the abilities. I think and the reason why I'm bringing that up, because it seems like a small thing that I'm nitpicking. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because I think that when you only see things in terms of power structures, you only see like people who have power and people who don't, then having more abilities in a video game is actually what you're going to look at, right? Yes, his name was Jumpman, but we know that was Mario. It was just... Michael Keller, question is, what exactly is Anita Sasquatch looking for? She wants power. Power, influence, and money. That's it. It's all about that. There's plenty of video evidence showing that the whole feminist frequency channel exists as a means for her to make money. But power, which maybe is something that she didn't know was going to be so much a part of her life at the time, is even more addictive. So when you have the ability to influence people, to change industries, that can be way more addictive than how much you get paid. Right? Leap dude. Yeah. Jampu man. So Anita sees Dishonored as, here's a guy with a whole bunch of powers, but it fails because no women's. No whammons, no good. That's her only criticism of the first one. It should have women in it, and they should be doing more stuff. So what does Dishonored 2 do? They compensate, probably overly compensate, by adding a whole bunch of women to the game that all have different jobs, and it's all going to be very weird to other people. But I don't really play Dishonored, right? But that doesn't mean that it's not something that we should know about, that we should consider a big deal. Especially for people who say, oh, Anita Sarkeesian is dead. She's old news. She doesn't have any influence. She's no longer a threat. I beg to differ. I think she's a bigger threat now than she has been before. Because before, she was just writing criticisms in her corner of the internet, where she just didn't allow, comments. Now, she's actually working with developers. She's getting guest of honor speaking engagements at gaming conventions. She's getting rooms named after her at like large multimedia social media companies. Okay? This is just a reminder that Anita didn't like that they were changing Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And for all I know, she could have an influence over that as well. Maybe it won't even happen. I don't know. Here's another thing that I wanted to share. Presenting the Tropes versus Women in Video Games curriculum. So her video series, Tropes versus Video Games, you know, that one that doesn't have any negative comments because there are no comments? She is sharing this with schools. The Tropes vs. Women in Video Games series has had a tremendous impact on the ways in which our culture thinks about and talks about video games, and the links between the values expressed in popular media and the values of our larger society. We have always intended Tropes to serve as a resource for educators. And now we're very pleased to provide a way to help people get even more out of the Landmark series. It's a Landmark series, okay. We proudly present a curriculum supporting the Tropes vs. Women in Video Games series. It's a PDF, I believe. Oh, no, it's basically like the lesson plan. So there are people in academia, and I don't think you guys need me to tell you that academia is pretty fucking feminist, right? So this is a no-brainer for them. All they got to do, imagine you're a feminist professor. And you don't have to be a feminist professor in gender studies, all right? You don't have to be in gender studies. You could be working in video game development. Like, this is probably what's going to happen. Imagine you're a video game developer, professor, right? In game design. Okay? And this series is out. You literally have less work to do because all you have to do is play these videos so you don't have to do any work. And that's like your whole fucking course. Just on that. They could possibly open an entire, make that a whole, like a whole class. Its own class. It could just be that. Women in gaming. All bullshit. All Anita. But Anita Sarkeesian doesn't have any influence. She's yesterday's news, right? She's only influencing college students in schools. So, we proudly present, I already read that, designed by education experts for the use in the classroom. Who the fuck are these education experts? I thought they were just your videos. In community organizations and anywhere that educators or viewers may wish to get the most out of the Trope series, the curriculum features lessons crafted specifically around every individual episode of Tropes. These robust lesson plans offer educators a rich, flexible assortment of activities, discussion topics, and related resources to aid viewers in making connections between the information presented in the videos themselves and the ways in which women are viewed and treated in our culture at large. The entire curriculum is freely available in PDF form, and it's sure to get students and other viewers thinking about the videos in new and insightful ways. She just linked the same thing twice. What the fuck? So this is the YouTube playlist. And I guess we can just look at... Can we look at this? Oh, yeah. Here's the... So this is one... I'm just clicking on one of them, all right? So let's see this, the learning goals. These are the goals. This is what the goal of the instructor and the students is, all right? It says by the end of this lesson or series of lessons, students/viewers will 1. Learn about and explore the history of the damsel in distress trope as it relates to both interactive media and pop culture. 2. Analyze how this trope is used in video games to disempower female characters and consider both popular characters and the effects of this plot device. 3. Consider the implications of this trope in broader context outside the examples of interactive media, where students will be asked to question how this trope and disempowering representations of women can perpetuate sexism. This is intended to control people, students specifically. And I'm terrified at the prospect of how many people are already using this. Because this has been around, well, actually, she just put this up a couple weeks ago. August 8th, 2018. So, not long ago did this happen. And nobody's talking about it. Nobody. All right. She also did another thing, a gender breakdown of games featured at E3 2018. For the 4th year in a row, we've made our data gathering excursion into each of the major E3 press conferences to see if things are actually getting better in terms of female representation, to identify those areas in which we're making progress and those in which we're just treading water. For purposes of this year's study, we recorded every game showcase at the EA, Microsoft, Square Enix, Ubisoft, Sony, Bethesda, PC Gaming, and Nintendo Direct events, aside from those games that only appeared briefly in montages, such as the id at Xbox montage, and Starfield from the Bethesda conference, about which any conclusions we might draw would be pure speculation. Also, games that appeared in multiple shows, such as Just Cause 4 and Fallout 76, were only counted once. Additionally, we've added a new category to this year, gender ambiguous. This refers to those few games, such as Ori and the Will of the Wisps and Tunic, in which the player character appears to have been deliberately designed not to be interpreted as belonging to any particular gender, a trend we certainly welcome. All right. So she did a... Now, this means... What this says to me is that Anita goes to E3. And she likely gets to go. She probably goes for free. Probably. This means that she has influence. She has people in high places getting her into things. She is likely loaded. She is likely very well connected. I mean, she got to be on the Colbert Report. So here she breaks it down. Now, this is important because her examination of the breakdown of these video games is going to be used with the developers that she's working with. The folks at Dishonored, the folks in tabletop gaming, the folks at wherever else she might be having influence. Hell, she might be the reason why there was a female amputee in World War II in Battlefield 5. She might be. Even if they didn't speak to her directly. If they see these videos and these curriculums going around and making the rounds, and she's got a room named after her, a fucking room named after her on Facebook, okay? That means that she's got influence. A lot of it. And she's making changes. So, she was also concerned with how many women presenters there were at E3. So she's going to want to make that equal. She was also concerned with how many non-combat games there were in E3. Because you see, it doesn't stop with just like women representation or people of color's representation or gender representation in terms of gender expression or sexuality. It doesn't stop with that. I don't know if you remember, but Jonathan McIntosh, who likely shares the exact same views as Anita, complained a lot about video games that have too much action in them. So this is something else that she's going to try and engineer. She's going to get games away from combat. And you know, when it comes to equality, what that really means is fewer men. That's all it means. If this whole map, this right here, all it said was gender ambiguous, female, not available, right? If the whole map was that, and there were no male characters at all, then she would say, okay, we did it. There are no men. I'm not kidding. She's never gonna stand up or say that there needs to be more male representation ever. Now, of course, I personally don't give a shit about representation, personally. But as long as it makes sense, right? But I think that when I start to see more and more, female characters where it doesn't really fit in, isn't there like a new Roman, ancient Rome or ancient Greece? I think it's Rome, an ancient Rome Assassin's Creed game coming out, and there was like a woman in centurion armor in it or something. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, it just stands out. It's really stupid. It's so transparent. All right. Let me look at your comments, and then I'm going to, like, close it out. Let's see. I'm just going to scroll up a bit. Is this going to be mandatory Common Core material, says The Great Indoors. Yeah, probably. Well, it's going to be in colleges at least, but I bet she'd love it if it was in high schools too, though. She'd love it. Lessons plans and syllabuses should have already been turned in and probably could not include her stupid stuff. Maybe not this quarter. It's Antonio Gramsci's Long March, in addition, live for us to watch. Yeah. Yeah, we're just watching this happen. And, you know, I'm going to speak out. I've lost friends just criticizing Anita publicly. I don't care. Bill Gates invested a lot of money into Common Core. That's Mystic Knight. I'm sorry, I should be reading people's... Observing Libertarian said Antonio Gramsci's Long March. John Morrison, she is just trying to stay relevant, and Battlefield is proving that she is cancer. She's not trying to stay relevant. She's still relevant. Entirely relevant. The industry loves her. They love her. Tech loves her. Big Tech loves Anita, period. They named a room after her. They think she's a fucking hero. You name rooms after people like Martin Luther King, like people who have been assassinated for what they believe in, okay? Anita is like probably just got criticism on the internet. She hasn't produced an iota of fucking proof of any of this. Not one iota of proof of any of the harassment. And people are just believing it, and they're making her into a martyr. Like some shit actually happened. Observing Libertarian, the porn version of Anita was so much more appealing. Yeah, where is that woman? She needs to make a comeback. Pun intended. Michael Keller, vote with the wallets. Don't buy Sarkeesianized games. Problem solves itself. Yeah, well, that is a start. But I think that the problem is that most of the customer base don't know. And if they were told, if you asked most customers, consumers, they would say, oh, Anita's that woman who was, if they do know, they'd say she's the one who was bullied off the internet because she wanted more women in gaming, more whammons. They would just believe it. Like, you need people like PewDiePie to speak out. That's what you would need. And if he has, then that's great, but he needs to do it more. Sarkeesian, John the Bemused, Sarkeesian is just a religious Puritan at this point. She's always been that way. I think at first, you know, I used to think, and there were people who used to say that Anita was like just a grifter, just like somebody who wanted to, you know, use people to make money. Because of the marketing guy that she looked at, that one seminar, right? And I was inclined to believe that, like, oh, she doesn't actually believe what she's saying. But no, I think that she really does. I think that she really believes in the things that she says, and like, cause she sounds like a full-on, out-and-out cultural Marxist all the way. And feminism is just the tool to achieve that. And I mean, it's the most effective tool. You know, there are people who say feminism is a product of cultural Marxism. I think that feminism is, feminism is not just a byproduct, but it seems to me that it is the most useful tool by itself. It will cause cultural Marxism. One will lead to the other. It's more effective than race hustling. It's more effective than LGBTQ activism. It's more effective than any of those other things. Feminism is the best tool. Women worsting is the best tool since the beginning of time. Let's see. The Great Indoors. And then certain people will state, young men are identifying less with masculinity, and that's a good thing, and it's not going to change back. Not going to happen. It's incontrovertible. Incontrovertible. Yes, of course. Women like this influence the industries, the tech companies, the entertainers, and educators. And then when men identify less with masculinity, it's because they're just making the choice. It's up to them. It's not, there's no influence on that. That's just them. And they're totally better men than the men before them. They're totally not basing their masculinity on serving women just like their fathers, just like their grandfathers, all the way back. It's a different masculinity. It's the same shit. It just hates other men more. And masculinity itself. It hates the self more. No wonder there's so many more suicides and mass shootings. Well, I'm not really sure that those are going up, but there's definitely a suicide problem, right? Shaman King XYZ says the woman is an open lesbian in 400 AD Rome. Is that the Assassin's Creed game? That's fucking nuts. They sound like they were shit friends. Well, yeah, they weren't really like close. They're more like friends of friends. So yeah, whatever. Let's see. Great indoors. Didn't you know Anita has been assassinated online? F. Yes, press F to pay respects to the first incarnation of Anita. The Anita's evolved though. She's returned. She's the ghost of the machine now. Rocks Derp. The main antagonist of Dishonored 2 appears in the DLC of the first game. I played both 1 and 2 and it all felt natural and they didn't force you to play as Emily. Okay. Well, Anita's celebrating, so maybe it felt natural, but you got to consider that she's treating it like a victory, and I bet a lot of other people are also treating it like a victory. Wikipedia snippet. Got no email notice for this. Just a heads up for YouTube screwing over your channel. Are you supposed to get an email from me? Because I'm not doing this through Honey Badger Radio, obviously. I also still haven't been monetized. That's why I played the music in the beginning, because I'm not getting money anyways. My channel is just like... I don't know if YouTube's ever going to monetize it. Intellectual iconoclasm. Damn it, GLBT, please. I know that it should be starting with a G, but when I say GLBT, I would just be talking about people who happen to be gay, lesbian, bi, or trans. But when I say LGBTQ, or just LGBT, I'm talking about the activists. Because the activists put lesbians first. Observing libertarian. Anita's a walking stereotype in several ways. 1, she's an Armenian con. 2, she's a leftist preaching the gospel of Marx. 3, she's the preacher who gets caught blowing guys in bathrooms. Has she been caught blowing anybody? I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to know. But I don't think that she has. She's a fungusaur. What doesn't kill her makes me more powerful. I was in high school in the 90s. It's all right. It's all right. Intellectual iconoclasm says, got you. Sorry for being pissy. It's okay. I didn't take it. I didn't take it personal. I get it. All right. Well, I mean, if you guys could hit my like button right in the button, please. If you guys could do that for me, that'd be great. I'm going to close out the show, but leave me a comment below. Tell me if there's other things that Anita and people that sort of like, you know, travel in the same circles as her, because I haven't looked at what Macintosh has been up to. And the thing is, they both have me blocked on Twitter, so I can't look at anything that they have going on unless I like go in there while not signed in, right? So if there's other things that's going on, let me know. I think Allison is, yeah, Allison wants my attention. And I should get out of here and get a Honey Badger Radio video uploaded. Observing Libertarian. Oh, Wikipedia snippet says, I'm subscribed to your channel, so I should be getting notifications. I also rang the bell. Well, that's fucking weird. That is weird. Observing Libertarian says, the blowing guys in bathrooms part was simply to point out her hypocrisy, i.e. the way she bullied Boogie, rants about oppression, throws her weight around to bully people. Yes, absolutely. And what does Boogie do? He forgives her. He says, oh, you know, I get it. I guess if I was in her position, I would be like a little on edge or whatever. He white knights for her. And the thing is, guys, I know that you think that that's unusual and that Boogie's some special cuck or something. But I think that's normal. I think that's the average dude, especially the average gamer dude, the average gamer nerd, is going to white knight for her. they're not even going to question her because we generally don't. We don't do that with women at all. By the way, Wikipedia snippet, thank you so much for subscribing and hitting the bell. That I do want to thank you guys for that. If you guys could subscribe to my channel, that would be great. I'll do more random streams like this and videos more often. I also have a Patreon. It was for when I was doing comics still, and I am working on comics, but you guys could, if you're interested, let me know, and I might like link you guys a Patreon. I don't know, but the I'm still waiting to be monetized by YouTube. So thanks for the coverage, Brian. Have a good one, chat. Yeah, thanks, guys. Never apologize. Absolutely. And yeah, Boogie is a broken toy. He's, you know, he's a really damaged dude. Really damaged. If the stuff he talks about with his mother is true, then I can understand why Anita would make him anxious. And the funny thing is that everyone knows, if you follow Boogie at all, you know how much abuse he's been through. Has Anita apologized for treating him that way? No. Does she have to? Apparently not. Nobody thinks that that's a problem, that she was so shitty to him. So she's got a room. A room at Facebook. She's got a fucking room. All right, that's enough. I'm done. Comment, subscribe, share if you like. Hit the like button. Hit the notifications. I'll do more videos.